This is a film about the body and Mozart's work, about how Mozart's music works on our body.
I think part of Mozart's greatness is the combination of the sublime with the humorous, the wittiness, the loony, the slightly weird and slightly manicness about it, because it does something to the brain and probably the body as well, because it isn't just about listening through the ears, it's all about what goes on. Music is part of you.
An Indonesian saying observes, "The eyes are the windows, but the ears are the gateway to the soul." For the 19th century Italian composer Rossini, music was a kind of medicine with a precise dosage. I take Beethoven twice a week, Haydn 4 times, but Mozart every day. Mozart is always adorable. Over 150 years ago, the German playwright Johann Wolfgang von Goethe observed that a phenomenon like Mozart remains an inexplicable thing, a latent, procreative force which is continuously effective from generation to generation. For each new generation, one thing is true. In the beginning was the sound of our mothers' hearts. A chamber in the House of Music in Vienna returns us to the concert hall that is the womb and the first symphony we ever hear. The French doctor Alfred Tomatis explained Mozart's amazing feats of performance and composition by reminding us that his father Leopold played the violin to his wife in Salzburg, while little Wolfgang was still inside the sound chamber of her womb. Mozart is the only music used in the 80-strong worldwide network of Tomatis Institutes. Here in the Austrian capital Vienna, the city Mozart chose to make his home, all these children were born of mothers who came to this Tomatis Institute.
When I listen to Mozart here, it's very different from listening to a CD at home or going to a concert. You hear the music on one ear and then the other. It's not always melodic. Sometimes it's even a bit out of tune.
Dass es nicht immer melodisch klingt oder manchmal sogar ein bisschen falsch.
The key to Frau Kronlachner's experience is the electronic ear, a kind of super CD player which can filter the frequency of Mozart's music and, crucially, vary the pathway by which the music enters our bodies.
What's special about the Tomatis method is the headset. This allows us to hear via the air route. By that I mean the ear. But it also allows sound to take the bone route by means of this special knob. This here sits on the skull, passing on the music's vibrations and producing an excellent listening experience.
Gynecologists often refer women here who have a history of premature deliveries. All these babies were born bang on time.
I remember one woman in particular. She came to me in her 27th week with early contractions and was very afraid. Her first child had been premature and this one was threatening to arrive early as well. With the help of the electronic ear, we were able to dispel her fears. The music went through her bones and that allowed us to get to the child very quickly. We were able to relax both mother and child.
I
remember the first time I came here to the Tomatis Institute. The baby moved in a way that I had never experienced before. It was strong and rhythmic, as if it were dancing.
So stark und so rhythmisch und wie es, wenn es tanzen würde.
Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Symphony No. 29 in A major, K201. Conducted by Class 4C, Groß Engersdorf Primary School, Lower Austria.
The usual musicality tests involve playing children melodies or scales and seeing how well they can copy them. The way the music resonates in their bodies is hardly taken into account. But I think that body resonance should be taken into account when assessing a child's so-called musicality. Auch diesen Aspekt, nämlich die Körperresonanz, mit zu berücksichtigen hat. Ich möchte euch zu unserem kleinen Versuch heute herzlich begrüßen.
I would like to welcome you to this small experiment today. Thank you for taking part. It is simple. I will play a piece of music and you will, how shall I say, let it into your bodies. You should move with the music so that we can see how you receive it and what it does to your movement. Let the pen dance on the paper to the music.
At this age, Mozart was already composing symphonies. The energy of the music is naturally imbibed by the children.
Brasileira, a samba from the Scaramouche suite. It has a bit of everything in it, curvature and a spikiness that is represented by drastic changes of direction. You could say this is classic dance music.
Eine, möchte man so sagen, klassische Tanzmusik. Ein Mozart-Stück,
a Mozart piece, the famous Sonata for two pianos K448. Rounded forms dominate. The drawing exhibits a harmonious and assured use of the pen.
Gesicherten Bewegungsführung.
Vanacek's research represents a new wave of work that acknowledges that the vast amount of the public know little more about the technical aspects of music than these children. Yet the magic is we all feel the music intensely. Mozart's music is more than about the concert hall and the cultural beauty contest as to whether the Berlin or Vienna Philharmonics play his symphonies better. While performance is important, the secret is in the music itself. In Salzburg's Mozarteum, the music university that bears the local boy's name, scientists have been comparing his music to that of other composers. The researchers' aim is to make a picture of what exactly hits a listener's ears. Unlike the eyes, our ears are always open, even when we are asleep.
Mozart's music is a phenomenon by which we constantly move between tension and relaxation. This is how his music works when you look at it close up, when you analyze it exactly. This area represents relaxation. On the other side, we have joy, an activation and an excited feeling of well-being. Below, we have sadness, melancholy and depression. On the active side of that is anger and frustration. When we use these categories to analyze music, we establish that this Dvořák was very quiet. Gluck likewise, and Mozart, the yellow triangle here, is exactly in the middle. It shows that Mozart's music moves between activation and deactivation. This is the reason we like it, not because it's only relaxing, but because it precisely alternates between excitement and relaxation.
Mozart, the man who finds the golden mean. The Avenue Mozart commemorates Mozart's 2 visits to Paris. Aged 8, he came with his father and was the musical sensation of 1764. 14 years later, he returned with his mother. The power of the Paris Symphony gave way to sorrow when his mother died suddenly. Two centuries later, Paris saw a French-Italian doctor called Alfred Tomatis make a breakthrough in the therapeutic use of music. Tomatis invented the so-called electronic ear, a set of filters and regulators which allows a therapist to compensate for the imbalance in a person's hearing. A rebel against the scientific establishment of his day, Tomatis started in the 1950s working with singers. He was fundamentally driven by the insight that we can only sing or talk as well as we can hear. His most famous patient was the French film legend Gérard Depardieu, who nicknamed Tomatis Dr. Mozart in his autobiography.
Depardieu was about 17 when he came to us. He had no means of fulfilling his huge potential. He was blocked as soon as he opened his mouth. His voice just gave way. We enabled him to access his creativity. He also built up a phenomenal memory and can now shoot several films at the same time.
I got to know Gérard Depardieu at a lunch. I was reading a book at the time, and he asked me if it was any good, and whether I understood it. I said, to be honest, no. I can't remember the story, and I didn't really get the plot.
Valérie Drouot is an ex-opera singer who came to Tomatis for help. She is now following in Dr. Mozart's footsteps as the director of one of the 3 Tomatis Institutes in Paris. Her clients include singers, actors, and people wanting to improve their ear for foreign languages. For Patrice at least, a course of 10 two-hour sessions has already produced results.
Sometime later, I had another chat with Gérard Depardieu. He said, "You have a stronger voice. It's pleasanter. You seem more together. That will help you get a job." Every day I made more progress. Every time I rang him up, I said, "Gérard, I've got it. I've understood. I understood the book and the plot. Now I've got a better memory, and I enjoy life more." I used to listen to hard rock, Metallica, Pantera, Ozzy Osbourne, music that was somewhat harder than Mozart. I didn't know anything much about classical music. I only knew it existed, but none of the melodies with their high notes. I only knew the low notes. By the way, I did a hearing test at the time, and they found out that I only used to be able to hear deep tones.
While it is easy to understand that classical music is better for the brain than heavy metal, why does it always have to be Mozart? Pourquoi Mozart?
Mozart's music is very rich in high notes. In order to balance out your own voice, you have to hear the high notes. The high notes contain the energy that the brain needs to be recharged. Mozart is a composer who uses the most high notes.
Joachim Kunze is a conductor from Hamburg who studied under Tomatis. His aim is to get professional musicians to play Mozart better. The headphones only allow the musicians to hear their performance through their right ears.
Thank you very much. What was different for you?
Yes, it was a new sound experience. I usually hear my colleagues in a very polyphonic way, but now I was reduced to my right ear, and there I heard a lot of flute and violin. It was possible to play in a more alert fashion.
Your right ears lead in the formation of sound. That's one of the first things that Tomatis discovered. The right ear takes priority in forming the way we hear. In all of us, the part of the brain responsible for processing sound is located on the left side of the brain. Because the brain is wired diagonally, it is the right ear that feeds sound quicker.
Eine kleine Nachtmusik is Larissa Stadelhofer's favourite piece of Mozart. For her, it's not about playing an instrument better, but getting a decent night's sleep.
Frau Schachenhofer had a bad road accident, and Larissa was in the car with her. Both were very shocked. When I had to stay at home late, I got nervous and rang up my mom several times. Also, I was pretty lost in my math schoolwork. But since I've been listening to Mozart, I have the feeling that I can cope much better. I came here very happy and relaxed and thought, Mozart, I like that, I know it well. After 2 hours of sitting inside, I come out and I feel really bad, so giddy, and I'm afraid to get into the car. I had a massive reaction. Hilde Tinkel said she never thought that I would react so strongly to the first sitting. The program I devised for Frau Schachenhofer was that we physically stabilized her and got her sense of balance back. Then we quickly took her to a high filtration. That means she had to listen to music with high-pitched notes and frequencies. That is where the emotional work takes place. It produces a feeling of well-being. After the third sitting, my circulation got better. I stopped crying, and even though I saw the pictures, I wasn't afraid of them anymore. It was necessary to let it all out. That's what Mozart did, this disintegration, this letting go of everything, these dams that he released that you normally don't allow yourself. You usually never allow yourself tears and sadness, but that's the effect Mozart had.
In the Viennese suburb of Linz, the hospital staff put Mozart to the test. What would do the paralyzed survivors of motorcycle crashes more good, the music of Wolfgang Amadeus or the native sound of Australia, the didgeridoo?
There are several parameters. In the first case, the EMG. That means the tension in muscles that are particularly sensitive to the emotions, like the shoulder and neck muscles. When something happens, I tense my muscles or I relax. I think you can see here very clearly the way the green curve is changing. Things are happening around him, and that's very exciting. And here at the bottom is his pulse. You see, with time, he gets used to the activity around him, and it goes down again.
We know from Andreas's mother that before his motorbike accident, he used to practice didgeridoo at home. So we organized this opportunity for him to listen to didgeridoo here with us.
Not just the computers, but the facial gestures show that Andreas is getting in tune with the music. In some patients, however, the didgeridoo produced negative results of fear. One such person was Herr Bilatz. He used to bite his lips until they were bloody.
Here you can see the swollen bottom lip with the scars that he got from his daily biting.
None of the patients here reacted badly to Mozart's music. In the case of Herr Bilatz, the improvement has been particularly marked. The bite wounds have healed, and he can now sleep through the night.
With Herr Bilatz, Mozart's music has calmed him down. The flow of saliva has stopped, and he's no longer biting himself. You can't hear any gnashing of teeth anymore. There is visible well-being.
Buffaloes used to roam these plains in Mozart's day. Now Louisville, Colorado is home to one of the newest hospitals in the US, and as such, it is a hotbed of music and medicine, so much so that even the rocks have speakers.
If you would go back and look at really our reasons for putting the music and Mozart's music in this hospital, it was to create something very different and very special. That's the reason we all came to this project, because we wanted it to be a healing environment. We wanted it to be different for every patient and every family.
The brain behind the musical architecture in the hospital is the Texan Tomatese disciple, Don Campbell. He has selected the music, which is beamed in from a central computer thousands of kilometers away in California.
We use Mozart in all parts of the hospital, but it is dominant in the maternity waiting, the maternity areas, the pediatrics, where we have outpatient children who come in and wait with their parents. Mozart weaves the times together. It's not about playing Mozart all the time. This is very, very important. It's about weaving their popular folk melodies. It's about using quality music over and over in the background. At first, you may not even know there is music, but then later you realize, oh, this is helping me carry through.
Campbell calls his music caffeine for the ear. It helps to keep the staff happy when working long shifts. The lifts are free of what Campbell insists is not lift music. In surgery waiting, the music has to be more of a chamomile tea, to soothe the nerves of families waiting for the results of medical procedures carried out in the 12 operating theatres. The bearer of good or bad news is known as a greeter. The greeter here is Cricket Powell.
I can recall to where it was a very trying situation for a family, and the news was not favorable. But they were hearing the music in the background, to which it allowed them to think through all of their options as to a surgical plan that was being presented for them. And the music gave them clarity as to what they actually needed to do for their own family. And I see that in so many situations here in ours, where we are dealt with a variety of dilemmas. It's not just one thing that we have to deal with on a regular basis, but many things. And families are able to sort through that with the assistance and the help of the musics that have been presented.
K448, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Piano Sonata for 2 pianos in D major. This piece of music plays the starring role in research into Mozart and the body. K448 has been played over and over again by scientists in search of the so-called Mozart Effect. The idea was started by Dr. Fran Rauscher's boss, Gordon Shaw, at the University of California in the 1990s. Gordon Shaw has since died, so Rauscher's new associate is the geneticist Honghua Li. For this film, they have come to Harvard to meet their critics and review the last decade's worth of research since Gordon Shaw initially developed his model.
The model basically said that the brain is pre-wired to appreciate symmetry in all modalities. So he believed that if we could stimulate the brain through music, then we would see some kind of improvement in a related domain. So you'll hear one piano playing the theme, and then another piano will play the same theme, only backwards. And it kind of interweaves, it goes in and out like this for a long period of time. And we thought that this is symmetry. So we chose that particular sonata, and we had 36 college students come into the laboratory and listen to either the first movement and a portion of the second movement of that sonata, and relaxation instructions and silence. And after each one of these conditions, we tested their spatial temporal abilities using a standardized test.
Students at the Paracelsus University in Salzburg get set to listen to the same Mozart and solve the same spatial test that Rauscher's students faced over 10 years ago. Theoretically, gender, ethnic, and social background should not impact on the effect of Mozart's K448 as it massages deep into the body and brain. Dr. Vera Brandeis poses the same spatial thinking question that Professor Rauscher did years before. A piece of paper is folded as shown. When these corners are cut off, which will be the resulting pattern? B or D is the right answer.
And what we found was that the students who listened to the Mozart sonata scored significantly higher on the spatial test than after they listened to relaxation instructions or silence. The effect was very short term. It lasted only 10 minutes, and then it was gone.
Other scientists couldn't repeat Shaw and Rauscher's results, but for the media that was irrelevant. A rash of self-help CDs flooded the market. The general message was, Mozart makes you smarter. The LA Times dubbed this the Mozart Effect. It was a key phrase that Don Campbell adopted and trademarked for his line of Mozart CDs and books.
The Mozart Effect is the power of music to go beyond art and entertainment. The Mozart Effect is about that universal quality, almost a childlike quality, that invites the body, mind, spirit to be involved in sound in a very different way than the classical structure in a concert hall or the tension of a schoolroom or just within musical performance.
Harvard University. One man has analyzed attempts across the world to replicate Shaw and Rausch's results. His conclusion: the rise in test scores could statistically be just as much down to chance as down to Mozart.
The Mozart effect is one of the biggest scientific myths of our time. It's a giant myth that's wrapped around the results of a few small scientific studies. And if the people who started the Mozart effect with the original studies had been fans of Haydn instead of Mozart, and they called it the Haydn effect, I doubt that you would have seen the same response in the public or in the commercial world or in people going off to trademark the phrase Haydn effect.
The audience for the Mozart effect is really a very mainstream audience. It's not distinctive in the sense that there's an age demographic, or it's the same mainstream that's interested in pop music and interested in Ford and Chevrolet cars and all other mainstream products. It's a very, very broad audience. In terms of percentage, the percentage of the international record industry that classical music represents is like, I think it's currently 3%. It's a very, very tiny slice. So that leaves 97%. And our audience is effectively in that 97%.
Mozart is a special figure for Western cultures. He's regarded as a genius, a child prodigy, and association with classical music is something that goes with high intelligence and educated people, and you have to put together all of those elements to understand why the concept of the Mozart effect has had the power it's had over the last 10 or 15 years since it was first brought forth in the media.
Dr. Chabris has never been to Vienna, but a stroll past the opera supports his point. Even though stars are everywhere in this world capital of classical music, Mozart is closest to God. The Mozart Effect, Austrian style, is not so much about CDs as calories. Some would call this Mozart balls, but the round chocolates taste good, and there is enough business to keep many a mock Mozart on the lookout for new converts deep into the night.
So it's a Mozart concert tonight, sir. It's going to be in the Golden Hall. Do you know the Golden Hall? It's the place, the home of the National Philharmonic Orchestra. One of the concert halls with the best acoustic in the whole world. This is how it looks like. The program tonight, it's a selection from the music of Mozart.
Dr. Rauscher has now turned to playing K448 to rats. The advantage over humans is that the Mozart cult cannot be argued as a distorting factor.
We found that the animals that were exposed to the Mozart completed the maze faster and with fewer errors than the animals that were exposed to the white noise. And then we did the molecular analysis.
So it was amazing for me to find out that it only needs 21 days for the rats to be able to perform better. Personally, I would like to see the Mozart effect as a form of energy that the brain or the neuron register when they're exposed to it. And maybe particularly there's a particular energy that carried by this piece of music that was special about it. And that's why we can test that in the rats and maybe in other animals.
I have no doubt that sound has impact on the auditory channels or tracks and on various receptors and so on. But that humanly organized sound would be perceived by a rat and received in that way, as Mozart strikes me as extraordinarily problematic.
The US researchers are now arguing about how much rats actually hear at all. While research on rats is clearly controversial, in Vienna, the latest research has concentrated on humans. Professor Georg Gittler has compared Mozart's effect on the spatial ability of 80 musicians and 80 non-musicians, 50% women and 50% men.
I used to be very critical because I know that it is not so easy to change our spatial awareness. It is part of us, one of our characteristics. Imagine you have to overtake on a mountain road, or imagine a surgeon doing an operation, or a pilot landing in bad weather. There are many examples from daily life where we need to use our spatial senses very extensively. And so I was sure that a 9-minute piece of music could not have the impact that nonetheless I observed in the study.
Und insofern dachte ich mir, dass eine Musik von 9 Minuten ganz sicherlich nicht eine derartige Auswirkung haben kann, wie ich sie aber dann in der Studie beobachten konnte.
Gittler got his results using specially developed spatial tests that examine people's ability to recognize whether objects have been turned on their axis by 90 or 180 degrees.
Dann sehen wir hier die Effekte.
Here we see the results for both research groups. At the beginning, there is a steep rise in both of them.
In der ersten Phase in beiden Gruppen.
The non-musicians fall back to their starting positions and stay there, while the musicians prolong this intense effect for about 11 minutes and then fall back to their initial position.
Und erst danach wieder absinken auf ihr Ausgangsniveau.
That means that the music did have an effect, but what exactly caused it cannot be answered by this study.
Dessen genaue Gründe und Ursachen ich mit dieser Verhaltensstudie natürlich nicht beforscht habe.
Well, my personal answer is balls. Not Mozart balls, but billiard balls. It may just be a coincidence, but it is interesting that while composing, Mozart spent much of his time playing billiards, a game that demands a high degree of spatial logic. Mozart spent 3,720 days, that's a third of his life, in transit. The 8-year-old Austrian boy from Salzburg wrote his first symphony in this Chelsea house. He was seasick on the ferry boat and his father caught a cold. Leopold wrote, "For people who are not very strong, the best advice is to leave England." For one special English composer, however, Mozart's illnesses are the key to understanding his music.
Tourette's usually manifests itself at the age of about 6 or 7, something like that. And there are signs in Mozart at this age that he had Tourette's syndrome, in my view. I have Tourette's, therefore I know what it feels like to have it. And there's a theory that's out fairly recently that says for those with a predisposition to it, the gene that is, travelling, stress, as Mozart undoubtedly went through, and having a series of quite major infections can set off the gene. I, for instance, have quite vicious, not vicious, violent, sort of quite expressive, expansive physical twitches, which can be anything from making faces to tapping my head to moving my arms, my legs, anything that I feel I need to do. It's a kind of itch, an urge. And if you don't do it, it feels uncomfortable. Mozart was always in a special category somehow, and I never really consciously understood it. I never even really consciously thought about it, actually, until someone mentioned the whole thing about the Tourette's, and it suddenly clicked that actually Mozart's the one thing that does stop me twitching. That when I listen to Mozart, it kills it dead. If I listen to Beethoven, or Brahms, or Stravinsky, I can be twitching perfectly normally. Mozart, on the head. And I'm not faking that. It isn't a placebo thing as far as I'm concerned. It all comes down to the fact that Mozart was treating his own condition, and by that treatment was producing music that in itself was inherently medical. Now, I can show you examples of where Tourette's appears in Mozart's music. It isn't all bits of every single piece of music. There are little sporadic things. It's like a twitch or an obsession. They come every so often. And there's a piece here that demonstrates it, in my view, very well, and it's an organ piece, and it's a fantasy and fugue. And at the very end of the piece, it's a fairly normal, brilliant piece of Mozart music. But at the end, when he finishes the piece, you would expect him to do this. Mozart throws a spanner in the works. Just when you think you're getting to the end, he says, I'm going to have a twitch now. Or he doesn't say, I'm going to have a twitch now. There is a twitch now. He says, I'm going to grab some back now. I'm going to throw the spanner into the works. And he does this. So you've got... Then he gets to the ending. Now, if you listen to those bits very carefully, it's chaos. It is chaos, and yet it is controlled. And that is the thing about Tourette's syndrome. It is a constant need to be chaotic, and at the same time, to rein it in. Papageno is the most obvious example of somebody having a twitch. And when I have a twitch, and many other people with Tourette's have a twitch with a word, let's say, pa, 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 is a wonderful twitch word. It's very easy to say, pa, 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 and you want to shout it, and you sound like a complete loony. But I think, because Mozart obviously didn't write the words for that, but he did set it. And so the words on the page would have read Papageno, 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 Papageno. And, you know, a normal composer might have gone Papageno or Papageno. But he goes Papageno. It's really patter song. But it has that extra element of grabbing it, of giving out, of having to do it, a kind of compulsion to do it.
Welche Freude wird das sein, wenn die Götter uns bedenken, uns liebe Kinder schenken, zu liebe kleine Kinderlein, Kinderlein.
And so yes, that is Mozart having a twitch. A final, great big, huge, I'm going to die soon, but I'm going to show you what I can do in the meantime, and just go for it. Music is part of you, and it cannot be anything else. And Mozart seems to have tapped into that kind of divine something that we probably all instinctively know but perhaps can't quantify. Mozart just does it.